Let me try that again. I call to order our Tuesday, October 12th, 2021 hearing regarding third-party contracting for non-instructional services. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Subers for the purpose of the hearing.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Evans-Brackett. The purpose of this hearing is as follows. The Perkiomen Valley School District is currently experiencing numerous vacancies in custodial positions, which it has been unable to fill with permanent employees. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic emergency and return of students to full-time in-person instruction and the required cleaning and disinfecting mitigation measures have placed additional burdens on the district's in-house custodial staff. The district desires to contract with contractors to fill existing and future custodial employee position vacancies until such time as such vacancies can be permanently filled with in-house district employees. The district may also contract with the contractors for required additional custodial services to supplement the services provided by the district's in-house custodial employees during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic emergency. Pursuant to Section 5-528 of the Pennsylvania Public School Code, a school employer shall not enter a contract with a third party for non-instructional services unless the following conditions are met. The school employer solicits applications from third parties. The school employer's solicitation requires each third party to provide a minimum 3-year cost projection to the school employer using generally accepted accounting principles. Information concerning any violation of federal or state law or regulation by the third party, information about the criminal and disciplinary records of current employees of the third party that may provide services, and information concerning any traffic violations or chargeable accidents. Then the third requirement is the school employer shall conduct a public hearing prior to a regularly scheduled board meeting to present to the public the selected proposal of the third party to perform the non-instructional services and to receive public comment. The purpose of this hearing is to satisfy the above requirement. This hearing was duly advertised in a newspaper of general circulation in the district as required by Section 5-528 on September 10, 2021. Notice of the rescheduling of this hearing was advertised on October 6, 2021. At this point, I turn the proceeding over to Mr. Weaver for a discussion of the summary of proposals and recommendation for award of contract.
Thank you, Mr. Subers. So the school district sent out an RFP in accordance with the rules promulgated and discussed as Mr. Subers just provided. We did receive 5 proposals back by the time the RFP was required by September 30. Those 5 vendors, SOS of Phoenixville, Precision HR from Bryn Mawr, Elite Facility Services from Delaware, ATS headquartered in Indiana, and Interstate headquartered in Horsham. After a review of about a week with Mr. Moran and myself going through the contracts, we not only investigated the hourly rates that were provided, but also the buyout clauses and the additional probation periods associated with these different contracts. To lay out the process, each hourly rate was investigated and compared to our own internal salary rates with benefits associated with that to come up to a total cost per hour comparing what it would cost for an internal employee versus an external employee. The second step that we did was we broke down the various buyout clauses, and we discovered that some of the buyout clauses have a end of contract plus 720 days, basically end of contract plus 2 years until we can employ these individuals once they've finished their outsourced contract positions here. Upon further review and additional feedback with emails back and forth, we discovered some of the vendors did not qualify and meet our criteria. They may have been low in rate, but their buyout clauses were way too long for us and did not fit our schedule that we had wanted. We focused really on 3 of the 5 proposals: Interstate Horsham, Precision HR, and SOS Phoenixville. And we are recommending tonight that SOS of Phoenixville provides the best cost for us. It's most efficient, and it worked with our criteria of getting employees in these positions to fill these positions under a contracted status. And the buyout clause for the SOS Phoenixville group is much more favorable and works with us in that we have only to meet a criteria of 520 hours plus a $1,500 fee after that for Phoenixville, SOS of Phoenixville. Precision HR had a lot of contacts within the area, as did SOS of Phoenixville. So just in that conversation, Interstate was dropped as well. So we really focused in on SOS of Phoenixville and Precision, and we are recommending SOS as the recommended provider.
And just to supplement some of that, I just wanted to confirm that the issuance date for the RFP was September 13, 2021, and the submission deadline was September 30, 2021. I'd also note that the recommendation is for a one-year contract with SOS Group to provide temporary custodial services at an hourly rate of $24.90 per employee for up to 10 temporary custodial positions. The total cost for a one-year contract shall not exceed $129,480, which will be covered by the federal ESSER and ARP grant funds over the course of the contract term. This not to exceed fee is consistent with the 3-year cost projection provided by the contractor. And also, I would note that the Perkiomen Valley Maintenance Custodial and Food Service Association, which represents the district's in-house custodians, is in full support of the district's entry into this contract because they really need the assistance, and we've been struggling to hire permanent employees. With that, I guess I'd open it up for any board questions, and then we'll open it up for public comment. Does the board have any questions? Any members of the public have any comments? With that, I would note that this matter is scheduled for board action this evening, Mr. Weaver.
That is correct.
And was duly included on the agenda as required pursuant to the Sunshine Law.
Yes, sir.
There being nothing further, I'd request that Board President adjourn the public hearing. Thank you.
I will now call to order the October 12th, 2021 business meeting. Item 1.02, roll call. Ms. Widener, please.
Mrs. Dorr? Here. Mrs. Evans-Brockett?
Here.
Dr. Hallis? Here. Dr. Kohler?
Here.
Mrs. Lofton?
Here.
Kim Mayers?
Here.
Mrs. Roberts? Here. Dr. Weston?
Here.
Ms. White? Here.
Thank you, Ms. Widener. Item 1.03, I invite us all to stand for the pledge. Item 1.04 is the reading of the PVSD mission statement. The mission of the Perkiomen Valley School District is to cultivate an inclusive community of learners empowered to grow intellectually, socially, and emotionally. Item 1.05, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. So moved. I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 1.06, I need a motion to approve the minutes of September 13th, 2021 and October 4th, 2021. So moved. Second. I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And moving on to item 1.07, we have a special recognition tonight, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Kohler.
Thank you, Dr. Kohler. Thank you, Dr. Kolar. Am I on? Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Kolar, for the opportunity just to share a few words about what it means for our teachers to be awarded tenure. In the state of Pennsylvania, teachers are awarded this commitment, if you will, from public school systems in the state, in the Commonwealth, when they've demonstrated 3 years of satisfactory service. And the individuals that you see on the list have been committed to Perkiomen Valley for 3 years and demonstrated satisfactory performance in each of those 3 years. And that's the terminology. While lots of times we describe our teachers as really demonstrating distinguished or excellent service, the state's terminology is satisfactory. These individuals that you see on the list tonight have all met the criteria to earn tenure and are now committed to education, and we are committed to them. It's analogous to a marriage, so we're very excited for them, and we'd like to offer congratulations to them for earning tenure.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. I know we have at least one person here, so when I call your name, if you would please come up. So the following personnel have completed 3 years of satisfactory teaching and have met the requirements for tenure. All teachers have been observed by the superintendent. Eric Brash, Middle School East math teacher. Jessica Capice, Evergreen Elementary 5th grade virtual teacher. Mary Ellen D. Valentino, South Elementary counselor. Kristen Cavini, South Elementary nurse. Fabienne Purplejalia, Middle School East French teacher. Jessica Puckett, Skippack Elementary counselor. And Karen Ubowski, PV High School gifted English teacher. So you can represent the group, and if you would please go out to the hallway for a quick photo, we'll take a brief recess.
Thank you. Congratulations again.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Kolar and Dr. Russell, and congratulations to all of our teachers. Moving on to item 1.08, comments on any topic. We'll accept comments from the public, from district residents and employees who wish to express opinions about any topics. Before presenting, each speaker must state their name and municipality of residence and/or the district building where they are employed. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. We'll have a timer up on the screen. Opportunity for public comments are included now and again during the closing sections of the board agenda. No speaker will be permitted to comment more than once during each section. The purpose of public participation is to allow the board the opportunity to hear feedback from the community members. It is not designed for the purpose of debate or discussion with the board. And we did have some people sign up before the meeting, so I'll call them first and then open it up to everyone. So first, I'll invite Tammy Campley from Perkiomen Township to the microphone.
Tammy Campley. I am from Perkiomen Township. I actually am coming up this evening due to a conversation that I had with a community member regarding volunteers in the school building and social media and pictures being taken. It's not something I ever really thought too much about until I had this conversation. And the concern is that when volunteers are at the buildings, they may be, not all of them, may be taking pictures of students and then posting them on social media. Now, it doesn't really sound like that big of an issue until you start thinking about, do they have access to who's allowed to have their pictures taken? There are some students who have not had permission from families to have their pictures taken for public postings. It also made me think about a time when I was in a classroom and I was taking pictures, and I had to make sure that I only took a picture of my child who was presenting and the backs of heads of other children, due to the fact that there was a child who was in the foster care system, and to have their picture on social media could actually be a safety issue for that child. So keeping this in mind, I really don't know what we can do about things, but I do think it's something that maybe we could kind of put our heads together in a committee meeting and start discussing, are there some things that we should be considering regarding what volunteers, the expectations of them are as far as following the same types of policies and regulations that the teachers do. We wouldn't expect to find a classroom teacher posting random pictures of their students on their social media pages. So is there something that we could do with volunteers as well? I'm just concerned that if a parent comes out and they're volunteering in, say, kindergarten, and they're in centers and they're taking pictures and they post it, and they don't think to not put it on public, and it's now public comment, and then they decide to check in, and they check in at Skipbeck Elementary. They now have just given a location of a student who potentially could have a PFA against a family member who was abusive. So it's food for thought. Again, I'm not quite sure what we can do to solve the problem, if there is anything that we can do at all. I know when we have major events and all families come out, you really can't tell people they can't take pictures of their kids. I mean, I take pictures of mine, I post mine. But this conversation with this community member gave me some pause, and it was something that I thought was important to kind of consider and discuss with the board. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Campley. Next, I'll invite Erin Maximillian, South staff, up to the microphone.
My name is Erin Maximillian, and I'm a teacher at South Elementary. I'd like to start by saying that I have been a loyal and productive teacher in the district since 1998. I would love to keep my job. I truly care about the children. I am speaking in reference to the required assurance testing for unvaccinated staff members. According to the CDC, workplace-based testing should not be conducted without the employee's informed consent. Informed consent requires disclosure, understanding, and free choice. Encourage supervisors and coworkers to avoid pressuring employees to participate in testing. I received an email from Human Resources that if I did not participate in the testing, I would be placed on unpaid leave. I can choose to swab my nose or lose income and benefits to support my family. Pressure? Also, the consent process is active information sharing between an employer and an employee, in which the employer discloses the information, answers questions to facilitate understanding, and promotes the employee's free choice. Has there been free choice? In the MOU with MCOPH, it clearly states that the Perkiomen Valley School District should obtain necessary consent for participants. What has the district done to obtain consent? Thankfully, I was negative on week 1 of testing. Week 2, I never received any results. I had to contact Penn Rapid Results myself, who had no record of my test because the results were never submitted. I am still waiting for the email confirmation of my negative test from Penn Rapid Results, and I was not the only one who had this experience. Clearly, this testing system is flawed. What is the end goal here? What criteria are being used to determine success? Are we waiting for zero COVID? We will never be free of viruses. Influenza has been with us for decades. We've lived with the flu virus without wearing masks, without weekly testing. Testing for the flu has never been mandated, yet tens of thousands of people die yearly from the flu. Are we just expected to wear masks forever for this one virus? Are we just expected to depend on vaccines for every new virus that comes out? New viruses are already on their way. Most staff members received the Johnson & Johnson shot back in March, a shot which is believed to be effective for about 6 to 8 months. Will vaccinated staff members be required to get a booster by the end of November when their vaccine effectiveness diminishes? Or will they also be forced to submit to weekly testing? Where does it end? These decisions are driving families away, driving good teachers away. Allow free choice for staff members. Allow free choice for students. Allow free choice for parents who know what's best for their children. It's not that hard. I'd be willing to bet that every single one of you deep down in your spirit can sense that this is not right. I understand the need for taking precautions to keep the community safe, but I urge you to revise the board resolution to include choice for all staff members. Speak up and make a motion to revise it tonight. Thank you in advance for preserving our freedom of choice.
Thank you, Mrs. Maximillian. Next, I'll invite Mr. Keith Fry from Lower Frederick up to microphone.
Good evening, Keith Fry, Lower Frederick. I'm here again to stand up and fight for freedom. I want to remind you, the board members, that you can vote against these evil powers. I know you're simply following the rules and the authorities above you, but this current government is trying to enforce mandates that are completely unconstitutional and infringe on our freedoms and liberties. I want you board members to remember, you are our community members. You're our neighbors. You're our friends. We, the unvaccinated, are not your enemy. We are no greater threat to this virus than any other individual in this room. So please stop trying to separate and divide this community and the school. There are many teachers and staff that feel completely helpless with the assurance testing that you are forcing upon them. And I say forcing because you are. They either take the test and comply or they lose their jobs. Imagine all the young women out there that would say no to sex, or young students refusing to drink alcohol for some fraternity or group. I would hope that we all can agree that any type of force or coercion is wrong and should be stopped. So now it's your time to stop the bullying and stand up for your teachers and staff that do not agree with these mandates and would rather have freedom of choice. And please vote no to this assurance testing program. Remember, you are forcing these tests against their will and their freedom of choice. And this does infringe on their liberties as American citizens and as our neighbors and as our friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. At this time, I'll open the microphone to anyone else who would like to speak.
Wendy Ledford, and I am a secretary at Schwenksville Elementary since 1996. Pride myself in my work, and I also want to keep my job. I'm here this evening to speak for others who are too afraid to speak in public. They are afraid of retaliation and retribution, not just from administration, but also from their own colleagues and even from parents. I cannot believe this is the state of the district. I'm so concerned for our future when fear prevents anyone from standing up for their beliefs. I urge other employees who are afraid to speak to reach out to me and let me be your voice. Your concerns deserve to be heard. I ask you all to think back to March of 2020. Do you remember when the Wawa and Skip Back closed? There was a confirmed case of COVID-19 there, and they threw out everything. The entire store inventory was trashed. The fear was rampant, and there was so much unknown about the virus. Within days, we were all taught how to wash our hands by singing the alphabet song, to wipe down our groceries when we get home from the store, to avoid touching our faces, and so on. And the news coverage and daily press conferences fueled the fear for months on end. Where is the fear now? I'll tell you where it is. You've been told to be afraid of me and others like me who have chosen to forego the vaccination for religious, medical, moral, or other reasons. Fear me, but why? If you are vaccinated, I pose no risk to you. But fear me you will, because mainstream media is telling you to do so. We are a nation divided over fear of an illness with a 99% recovery rate for most age groups. According to PV's COVID-19 dashboard on the district's website, there are 6 staff members who have tested positive for the virus so far this school year. However, that's not correct. There are 7. According to an email I received from Dr. Russell on Sunday, there haven't been any identified transmission in PV school settings this year among staff and/or students. I wonder how many of those 7 staff members were vaccinated. Maybe you are mandating assurance testing for the wrong group. I respectfully ask all of you to question everything. Please speak up and ask the tough questions when something is up for a vote or discussion. Question administration, question the health department, question the governor. All of us are counting on you to do the right thing. I can't wait for the day where you can all get back to the focus of providing the best education for PV students while supporting teachers and staff to do so, and the freedom of choice for everything else is given back to the parents and the staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ledford. Are there any other public comments at this time? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to section 2, reports and presentations. We had all of our reports last week, but is there any update from anyone? Students, do you have?
We don't have much to say other than we want to wish the best to all the students taking the PSATs tomorrow.
Thank you. I do not have any update. Dr. Russell?
I do not. Thank you.
Mr. Subers? Any board or committee updates? Okay. So we can move on to section 3, the consent agenda. Item 3.01, I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda developed on October 4th, 2021. I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to section 4, education, I'll turn it over to Dr. Kolar.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans-Brockett. Items 4.01 and 4.02 were both presented on October 4th. 4.03, 04, 05, 06, and 07 are all on consent. Item 4.08 is a recommended action for a motion to ratify the resolution regarding the district's assurance testing program, and I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Mr. Dorr.
I thought we were tabling this after the discussion we had. Don't we have to add some language to it?
Mr. Dorr, if you'd like to make a motion to table, you can make that motion, and if it's seconded and approved by a majority of the board, it would, the motion would be tabled.
Okay, motion to table.
We have to vote on the original motion first, or no? Okay.
The motion on the floor is a motion to table. There's no discussion on a motion to table.
Okay, so all those in favor of tabling the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
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 Ms. Weidner, can we get a roll call vote, please? Nay.
Yay.
Nay.
Nay. Nay.
Aye.
So that takes us back to our original motion, which we had a motion and a second. Are there questions regarding the assurance testing program resolution? Dr. Weston.
We had some discussion earlier about additional information that was going to be provided to the board around the process. Can we get some time frame as to when we will receive that?
Administration can provide that this week. Actually, we can do it by end of business tomorrow, if that would be helpful, Dr. Weston. Happy to do that.
Mrs. Lofton.
So it's my understanding that the legal issues that we had talked about previously can all be sorted out and do not require any change to the content of our assurance testing program resolution. Is that your assessment, Mr. Subers?
Yes, I would say that the issues raised by the board, the administration has agreed to address those as part of the implementation of the resolution.
Dr. Kolar, I saw your hand raised.
I had a similar question, so I'm good.
Any other questions at this time? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That concludes section 4.
Thank you, Dr. Kolar. We'll move on to section 5 on business. Mr. Dorr, please.
Thank you, Ms. Evans-Brockett. 5.01 was a financial update from last week. 5.02, there are no reports for grants and donations. 5.03 and 4 are on consent. 5.05, it's a motion to approve a one-year contract with SOS Group, Inc. in Phoenixville to provide temporary custodial services at an hourly rate of $24.90 per hour per employee for up to 10 temporary custodial positions. And I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And that ends my section.
Thank you, Mr. Dorr. That takes us to section 6 on payment of bills. Dr. Weston, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans-Brockett. Item 6.01, the ratification of bills and payroll and the authorization of payments. The recommended action on this item is a motion to ratify the payment of bills and payroll as per the list submitted for the period ending September 30th, 2021, and to authorize the payment of bills on the check and voucher registers submitted for October, and I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 6.02, the approval of the treasurer's report and financial statements. The recommended action on this item is a motion to approve the treasurer's report and financial statements, including the summary of cash and investment accounts as prepared by the administration for the period ending September 30th, 2021, and I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And that concludes section 6.
Thank you, Dr. Weston. Moving on to section 7, professional personnel. Ms. White, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans-Brockett. Items 7.01, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are all on consent, and that ends my section.
Thank you, Ms. White. Moving on to section 8, support personnel. Mrs. Roberts, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans-Brockett. 8.01, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are all on consent. And 8.07 is the approval of a memorandum of understanding to approve the attached memorandum of understanding for the Maintenance, Custodial, and Food Service Association agreement as presented, and I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
8.08 is on consent, and 8.09 is a new item. The motion is to approve a memorandum of agreement with Perkiomen Valley Education Support Personnel Association as presented, and I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And that completes Section 8. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Roberts. Moving on to Section 9 on governance. Mrs. Maris, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans-Brockett. The following policies are presented for a first reading. 006 meetings, 006.2 meeting agendas, 146.1 trauma informed, 218.1 weapons, 218.2 terroristic threats, 236.1 threat assessment, 247 hazing, 249 bullying and cyberbullying, 252 dating violence, 805 emergency preparedness, 805.2 school security personnel, 903 public participation in board meetings, and 916 school volunteers. Are there any questions? And then if not, we'll move them to a second read.
Yep.
Thank you. 9.02, approval of recommendations for the 2022 PSBA officers. The motion to choose and endorse candidates for PSBA officers for 2022, I believe we've already, yes. So we have, do you want me to read these all into? Mrs. Evans-Brockett, do you want me to, what do I need to do? You want me to read president and the names, or?
I believe if all the candidates, unless there's choices, you can,
There are,
so we'll have to identify the choices.
Yeah, so
Right.
last week we identified our choice for president-elect, and that is noted on here, but I believe we should state that separately. And then for the Forum Steering Committee, we need a recommendation for which 3 candidates. Dr. Kolar, do you have a recommendation?
I was just going to recommend that we go with number 1, 3, and 4, only because I tried to find information on all of them, and number 2 is the one I found the least about. They all seem qualified, so we have to pick. That was my recommendation.
Okay, everyone all right with that? Okay, so Mrs. Mares, if you'll read those names as the motion, please.
so it's a motion to choose the Forum Steering Committee, and we are recommending candidate number 1, Jennifer Davidson, candidate 3, Beth Ann Ziegler, and candidate 4, Jamie Lynn Zamorski. And I so move.
And just to be clear, that includes the candidates for president-elect, vice president, East Zone representative, and Section 7 advisor, and insurance trustee as presented on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
So we had a motion. The person that seconded, do you agree to that? Okay. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And that ends my section.
Thank you, Mrs. Mares. That takes us to Section 10 on closing items. Section 10.01, we will again accept comments from the audience if there are any audience members that would like to speak at this time. Seeing none. 10.02, comments from board members. Are there any board members who would like to make a comment at this time? Mrs. Mares.
Thank you. My comment is that I hear the strife and the struggles from the people some of our employees in the district, but the goal for me as a school board director is to keep as many students as possible in our schools, in classrooms, not being quarantined, and that's the job of a school director, I believe, is to keep our schools healthy and functioning well. So it's hard to hear people who are struggling with this decision, but that's the goal. And I know that we've said previously that when the levels come down to medium or moderate, that we'll look again at our health and safety plan and hopefully make some changes that give more choice to those individuals. But for now, I'm thankful that our school district is still operating well and we're not quarantining many students or staff, and appreciative to all the administration and everybody who's working hard to keep it that way.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayers. Are there any other board members who'd like to make a comment at this time? Seeing none, moving on to item 10.03, notice of video recording disclaimer. Per policy 006.3, all video recordings are subject to the following disclaimer. The opinions expressed by any members of the public do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of School Directors of Perkiomen Valley School District and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of School Directors of Perkiomen Valley School District hereby expressly disclaims any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public. Any unauthorized rebroadcasting of any video, audio, and/or still image of this meeting is strictly forbidden without the written permission of the Board of School Directors of Perkiomen Valley School District. And prior to adjourning the meeting, I'll state that we had an executive session prior to tonight's meeting for the purpose of discussing potential litigation. And with that, I adjourn tonight's meeting.